My mother got a job teaching on an island, Anderson Island out in the bay. So I lived there for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. So what high school did you graduate?
Tacoma.
Tacoma High School. When was it?
Lincoln. Tacoma Lincoln High School in 1947.
Tacoma Lincoln.
So I was going to school there during the war years.
So what did you do after the graduation?
I went to college at University of Washington, and because I had not taken a language, I could not continue, so I went to Washington State University at Pullman, Washington, and took a course in soil science, a major in soil science.
So you mean University of Washington in Tacoma?
Seattle.
Seattle. Wow, that's a nice school.
Oh yes.
So you did soil?
Soil science at Washington State University, Pullman.
At Pullman.
Yeah.
So you did good job in high school study.
Yeah.
You had a good grade.
Yes.
Very nice.
We sort of had poor teachers though because of the war. We couldn't get the best teachers.
But did you like what you studied? Soil science?
Oh yes, I like that very much. In fact, it carried on throughout my scientific career.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you know anything about Korea before?
No, I had joined a reserve unit in the fall of 1949, and the reserve unit was called up in August 1950. It was activated and consisted mainly of World War II veterans who cursed and swore and resented being called up for active duty. And then I had basic training at Camp Carson.
Did you enlist
I
or
did.
were you drafted?
I enlisted.
Why?
It was a little additional money, and I was interested in the military.
When did you enlist?
The fall of 1949.
Where did you go to basic military?
Camp Carson, later called Fort Carson, Colorado.
Fort Carson, Colorado. And you were in the university. Why did you quit the university?
Because the unit I was in was activated. I needed 1 semester to finish my degree. I petitioned to finish a degree. The letter came back stamped, no deferrals at this time.
Oh, so they were all about to be drafted, and before you are drafted, you enlisted.
I wasn't drafted, I enlisted.
Yeah. How was it? I mean, you must have felt bad about it.
I did.
Yeah.
I really resented it, but because of the Korean service, everything worked out well.
Really? So tell me about it. So when you received the basic military training, Fort Carson, Colorado, what was your specialty?
Well, I had no specialty in basic training. They assigned me an MOS of bugler.
MOS.
But when I got to Korea, because of the soil science, they made me the battalion soils engineer.
So when did you leave for Korea from where?
I left from San Francisco in the winter of 1950, arriving in November in Busan. And we were told, because of the combative situation, they didn't need engineers, they needed infantry, so turn in your carbines and get M1s.
So you become a rifleman.
Yeah. But I was a very fortunate rifleman because as a soils engineer, I was given a Jeep.
What does military do in terms of soil science during the war? Wow, I mean, what has anything to do with the soil science? Tell me about it.
Well, soils engineering is not really related to soil science. Soils engineering deals more with construction.
Aha.
Road beds, railroad beds, bridges, removal of demolished and disabled vehicles.
So what did your knowledge about the soil science help serving
Yes,
that?
yes, it did, because some of the things were similar.
Tell me about it. Give me the detail. How similar and why was it helpful for you to become a soil engineering? And
Well, for example, mechanical analysis deals with the percentage of soil, of sand, silt, and clay, and gravel. And of course, this information is also needed in road construction. So that shows you a similarity.
Huh. So you studied soil science to serve as a rifleman during the Korean War.
Yeah.
What a destiny, huh?
Yeah.
How did you like Korea when you arrived in Busan? How was scene in Busan?
I didn't stay very long in Busan because our
But overall in Korea, how was it?
terrible.
Tell me the detail.
Well, there was much destruction and refugees. I really felt sorry for the columns of refugees that were coming down from the north. It was pathetic, really pathetic. And when I was out in the Jeep reconnoitering, one of my duties was to go on patrol for new headquarters, and I'd stop by the side of the road to eat and hear these little kids starving with swollen bellies and scabby faces. We would share our food with them.
Mm-hmm.
This kid could just come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you a funny story. As I mentioned, I had a Jeep. So I was given the responsibility of leading patrols to find new headquarters buildings for our battalion. So this one day, we were searching for our headquarters, and we came upon this isolated building in a field. And we were very cautious and had our rifles at the ready because we had been ambushed previously. And all of a sudden, there was a loud bell ringing. And the doors opened, and these little kids came out in black uniforms, so they were obviously young students.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of them ran toward the village across the street, and I guess the professor from the school, several of the kids ran back in, so he came out and smiled and waved at us, and we smiled and waved back, and several of the kids wanted to be our valets. They said they would shine our shoes and take care of our uniforms and run errands, and all they wanted was a small stipend and some food. And we told them we were just visiting and had to leave. So we went back to our company commander and told him what had happened, and I said we didn't requisition the building because it was occupied. And he said, well,
Occupied by whom?
the students.
Oh, yeah.
So he said, well, I think you made the right decision. Well, go out next morning and see what you can find.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out next morning and found an abandoned building in that village, and so that took care of that situation.
What was your unit? What division?
453rd. It was 8th Army,
8th?
453rd Engineers.
453rd
Engineers.
Engineers. So, especially because your task was to find the place and build the headquarters for the military.
Yeah, find a
So that you are going all around.
Yeah.
And where was it? Was it in the Seoul area? Where was it?
No, it was south of that. Our unit was going up the Red Diamond Highway.
Where is? I don't know.
Okay, Uh,
Do you remember the
Daegu.
Daegu?
yeah, and Daejeon. And north of Daejeon, we were in a night convoy and ambushed, and 2 of our men were killed. Some were wounded. And it was my responsibility because
So when was it? Is it 1950 December or 51?
Yeah, in spring.
51.
Yes. And because I had a Jeep, it was my responsibility to take the bodies to the graves registration at Busan. And a company commander went along because he wanted to be sure the record was straight.
Did you drive by yourself or did you have a driver?
I drove by
You
myself
drove by myself.
and with the company commander.
Okay.
And when we arrived at the grave registration, there was column after column of frozen corpses
Yeah.
stacked 5 high. And a truck came
In
and
Busan, you mean?
Pardon?
In Busan.
In Busan. And a truck came with more frozen corpses and unloaded them, and 2 Koreans, one on either end of a bamboo pole, unloaded the corpses and carried them out and stacked them up.
Was it American soldiers?
I don't know. I think they were primarily Americans.
Do you have a PTSD?
Yes. Moderate rating.
Is that because of those scenes that you saw, that you have a nightmare and so on?
Yeah. And I've got a little souvenir here.
Yeah. Show it to us.
Well, I've got several souvenirs.
But my question hasn't ended yet, so I have more questions to ask you.
Okay.
But you can show us. What is it? Oh.
We threw many of these.
I hope that is empty, right?
Yes.
Okay. Show it us again. Hold it. That's the grenade
Yeah, pineapple style.
pineapple style. And you threw so
Oh,
many
yes.
of those.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And what else?
There was a long line of Chinese prisoners that came by one day.
Mm-hmm.
And I traded cigarettes for one for his hat.
So there was a Chinese soldier arrested, POW?
No, there was a group of Chinese soldiers that were had taken prisoner, and they were marching with a tank in charge and American soldiers on the side. And I
Hold it up, show it to the, yes, good. Hold on, let me, yes. So you exchanged it
yeah,
with your cigarette?
yeah. I thought it was a good deal. And then
That's a real one?
yes,
Wow.
then on another occasion, we were on patrol and we didn't finish our patrol, so we found an Army unit and stayed there that night. And that night there was a short mortar barrage, and next morning the frozen ground was littered with these Chinese surrender passes.
Yep. Safe conduct pass,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I have seen many of those, and yours are a little bit different. Can you show the other side, back? And it says, "Why are you here?" Right?
That's right.
Yeah. Why are you here? Have you thought about it?
Sure.
Why? What was your conclusion? Why were you there?
Well, to defend South Korea and to defend our country really against communism.
Mm-hmm.
And I have another souvenir.
Yeah.
North Korean money taken from a North Korea deserter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, I'll take the pictures of those, okay, later.
Okay.
Where did you go from there? Did you go north from Daejeon and Daegu and
Yes, we
Well-
went north. Our responsibility, we were told, was to rebuild a bridge on the Han River. So we went up that direction.
what was your mission? I mean, what was your role?
Well, my role was to be the soils engineer.
Do you remember what you did there to rebuild the Han River Bridge?
No,
What did you do?
I had a Jeep accident
Mm-hmm.
and landed upright in a frozen rice paddy. They sent me down to the Red Cross Hospital at Busan.
When was it? When did
This
it?
was in late spring.
Late spring. So how did it happen?
It happened because I didn't understand at the time, but the diagnosis down in the Busan hospital was a fever and bronchitis. So obviously I was not functioning properly.
So you may have kind of dozed and you lost the.
Yeah, I lost control.
Mm-hmm.
But at the hospital in Busan, I met a very kindly Italian doctor who said, "Son, you don't belong here. I'm going to get you out of here." So he sent me to a hospital to recover in Tokyo. And
To
I was,
Tokyo.
yeah, I was no longer declared fit for field duty.
Oh, so that was late spring,
Yes,
1951,
yes.
and then you went to. So the wound must be. I mean, the injury must have been really serious.
No, I had no wounds.
Not at all.
No.
Then
I
why?
was just shook up. But they sent me there because they wanted to be sure that I had no wounds.
You are lucky.
I'm lucky.
Mm.
So when they sent me to Japan, I was put in a Turkish ward. And that was quite an experience. And they forgot about me, and I was bored. And so I said one day, "Isn't there something you can do? I can do?" And they said, "Have you had any chemistry?" I said, "Oh, yes." They said, "How would you like to work in the biochemistry lab?" I said, "Oh, fine." So,
In Japan.
in Japan,
Uh-huh.
8167th Army Hospital.
81,
67th
67 Army.
Hospital.
Yeah,
At that time, it was the 361st Station,
right.
but it became the 8167. So I liked that job, and in the summer of 1951, they had the epidemic hemorrhagic fever, and so the soldiers started coming in with epidemic hemorrhagic fever. And some of them somehow it got barbiturates, and they died. It was terrible.
Mm.
And I would visit them before they died and assist at the autopsies. And before I left, I became the NCO in charge of that lab. And we got a commendation from 8th Army for our work on epidemic hemorrhagic fever. So that was nice.
Mm.
So time came up for reenlistment, and I didn't reenlist. I was covered under the old World War II GI Bill, so I went back to school. I finished my
When did you leave Japan?
summer of '52.
Mm-hmm. And you came back, and what did you do?
I finished my bachelor's degree in soil science.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a master's degree and a PhD under the old World War II GI Bill.
Wow.
So everything worked out well for me.
So you have a PhD.
Yes.
After that, after you got the PhD, what did you do? Did you teach or you worked in the?
No, found that there was a job at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, California. They wanted a desert soil microbiologist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I'd been studying. And they wanted this person to get soil samples from desert areas around the world
Mm-hmm.
and make soil tests for the Viking Mars Lander Life Detection System.
What? Could you repeat that?
Mars Viking Lander Life Detection System.
Wow.
So they said, now you've been going to various desert areas around the world, and I went to the Atacama, I went to the Australian Red Desert, I went to the Sahara, I went to the Chilean desert, and I finally ended up going to the Antarctic 7 times. I spent almost 2 years of my life down there.
That's not desert.
It's a cold desert, very
Okay.
cold desert. And there is some exposed land.
And then finally you participate in making Mars Viking Lander life detection system?
I had the samples for the machines that were going to examine the soil.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was interesting.
So you witnessed so much troubles and sufferings and tragedy in Korea, but right after you came back from it, you continue on your study and
Yeah.
you became the PhD and you
Right.
participated in one of the most exciting projects.
Yeah, 125 publications.
125 publications.
Yeah. Oh, in the Antarctic, I met Dr. Werner von Braun.
Brown? Von Braun?
Von Braun, that was interesting.
He's the rocket scientist
Yeah, he was the
from Germany.
Yeah, world's premier rocket scientist.
So tell me about the story that you met him.
Okay, there was a meeting with von Braun and those scientists who were not in the field. And so I met him, and because I had studied German in school to pass my PhD, I greeted him and introduced myself and told him in German what I was doing and that I was working for NASA. And so, he was very interested in that. So, of course, he was more interested in manned flight. And I was, of course, involved in the unmanned flight.
Right.
But I had a nice field trip with him, and I have a photograph of him with his arm and around me and his autograph.
That's very nice.
Yeah,
Von Braun.
von Braun.
Wow. You already told me about what was the most difficult thing during your service in Korean War.
I think the most difficult thing was going to graves registration and seeing those stacks of corpses, 5 deep with the dog tags on the outside.
Mm.
Oh God, that sticks in my memory. But as a result of my service, I got a frozen right hand. I still have trouble with it. And hemorrhoids from bouncing up and down to that Jeep.
Yeah. So you move all around the peninsula, and where did you sleep and how did you eat? Tell me about those stories.
Okay, mostly because we were traveling, we ate sea rations. And because I had a Jeep, we could heat them up on the radiator.
Haha.
So we had warm food. So that
Lucky
was-
you.
Yeah. But
Where did you sleep?
we slept in sleeping bags, or if we could, we would try and find an encampment nearby and stay there.
So
if
when
if we were gone more than a day.
in the sleeping pig, meaning you in the land or?
Yes, right out in the open. There was another occasion I remember when there was refugees coming down, and in the midst of the refugees was 8 men in white robes marching in formation.
Information?
information.
Oh, information, okay.
Yeah, and so we got our rifles out. We were wondering, what should we do? Should we defend ourselves? Should we shoot or what?
Were they refugee?
No, I'm sure they weren't. Not 8 men marching in formation, mixed in with the refugees.
But they were not in uniform.
No, white robes.
Okay.
So they looked straight ahead. They kept marching, and we let them go by.
Mm-hmm. Must have been dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, and on another occasion, there was a Korean wedding going on.
Really? During the war?
Yeah. And,
Are you sure?
Yeah. And there was singing and dancing and very entertaining. And overhead was a dogfight going on. And all of a sudden there was an explosion and parts of a plane rained down on us. I don't know which. Of course, we heard later that the Russians were flying MiGs.
When you talking about spring of 1951?
Yeah.
Dogfighting there?
Yeah.
Where was it?
Well, that would have been north of Daejeon.
So it's so funny that there was a traditional marriage going around. I cannot believe it.
Oh, yeah. It was. With a dogfight up above.
You should have taken picture of that.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't get over it with all the dancers and singers and everything, you know. It was a very joyous occasion.
How much were you paid during your service in Korea?
Less than $100 a month. It wasn't until I got to be a staff sergeant in Tokyo that I made $165 a month. So I don't remember what the pay was in Korea. It was pretty small.
What did you do with that money?
Well, there was no place to spend it in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
I saved it and then spent it when I got to Japan. I didn't smoke, so I always exchanged my cigarettes.
So you had more money to make.
Yeah, and in Korea I would exchange the cigarettes with the other guys for Hershey bars and the candy and things. Well, I tried the cigarettes once and I thought, if I'm going to die, I want to find out what I'm missing.
So, when did you retire?
In 1995, and before that I worked as the environmental advisor for an Indian tribe in Connecticut.
So your life has been really successful.
Yeah.
You were rich enough to, right?
Well, enough to retire on.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question: have you been back to Korea?
No.
You don't want to go?
No.
Why not?
Memories.
Mm.
But I know it's changed. I've seen the book.
What book? Reborn Korea?
Yes, Reborn Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire the people for their reconstruction and compared to North Korea, which is a terrible place with that Kim Jong-un.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like a very wonderful country now.
Yes. We were able to accomplish that simultaneous democratization and economic development because you were there.
Yes.
And you witnessed such tragedy, but now based on those, we are now the most substantive democracy in Asia, and we are 13th largest economy in the world. Can
That's
you believe
wonderful.
that? Can you believe that?
No. I know the economy is doing very well.
We are the only country among OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. OECD is a wealthy country club. And we are the only one who used to receive the aid from the United States and other countries. Now we are offering aid to other countries.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that?
That is. That's tremendous.
But despite such a unprecedented outcome out of the Korean War, the Republic of Korea now, why people used to say that the Korean War has been forgotten? Why is it?
Well, there was not media or news coverage in the U.S., and when there was not very much interest. In fact, when I came back, there was no greeting or anything. My mother and my stepfather were there. In fact, when I talked to some people afterwards about being in Korea, one guy said, "Oh, were you gone?"
Uh-huh. So why there is no interest? Is that because Korea was miserable at the time?
Yes.
It was because it was Asia. They, the Americans and Western people thought of the people in Asia as primitive and things like that?
Well, I guess they did, but I didn't think that.
You didn't think that?
No, I did not. I was not brought up to believe that.
So that's why it's been forgotten?
Well, as I say, I think there was not much media coverage. There was not much interest from the U.S. people as to what was going on in Korea. It was too far away, and it was too soon after World War II, and they didn't feel that it really affected them.
Mm-hmm. But now, I think it's been changed.
Yes.
The perception.
Yes, perception's been changed.
Yeah, why?
Well, because of the progress of Korea. And as you mentioned, and it has tremendous stature in the world now.
Mm.
And I pray that Kim Jong-un doesn't do some crazy thing.
Yeah.
The guy is nuts.
So what is the legacy of the Korean War and Korean War veterans?
Well, I think the legacy is we're still forgotten. There's camaraderie among those who were in Korea. But other than that, I don't see much going on.
Anything you want to leave to this interview?
Well, I appreciate the interview, but I didn't look forward to it.
You didn't?
No.
No. But why did you decide to come?
Because I thought that I should make a contribution
Yeah.
to my experiences in Korea. Even though they weren't all that monumental, I got out of there before they had that bloody hill fighting. So, and I thank God that I survived. In fact, I prayed to, please, God, let me get out of here in one piece.
Yeah. It is important to have this witness, your witness about your experience during the Korean War, for historically and also for the education of our young children. So I think you did right decision. You did make right decision to come here and talk to us. And this interview will be uploaded into the internet so that everybody from anywhere can see it.
Oh my.
All right? Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Any other story or any other message you want to leave to this interview?
No, I think I pretty much told you everything. I'm sure I forgot some things, but some things are best forgotten.
Yes. And again, I want to thank you for your fight for the Korean nation who suffered from such tragedy. Now, because of your sacrifice and your fight, that the Koreans are strong.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.